Bondholders Forum petitioned the government, while affected pensioners ready to storm the finance ministry.
Intend to converge at the premises of the Ministry of Finance on Monday, 23rd, 9 a.m. Those who cannot stand, they will come with their wheelchairs to sit.
Meanwhile, the NDC minority in Parliament has today announced it will be hitting the streets across the country to mobilize opposition against the debt exchange program.
We will embark on a nationwide roadshow to foster deeper understanding of what they are doing. So very soon, we'll deploy our teams into the region.
And top stories are always brought to you by Vodafone. Tonight, the power of the people is in full force. More than 100,000 people have so far signed up to join the fight to force government to abandon plans to include individual bondholders in the controversial debt exchange program. There is active mobilization tonight to occupy the seat of government, Jubilee House. Now listen to conveners of the United Groups, Individual Bondholders Forum and the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana, Senyor Hossi and Martin Pebu.
There's going to be a demonstration, gargantuan demonstration. Actually, we have instructions to write to the regional police, Dr.
Occupy Jubilee House loading.
Dr. Gariba, we are sending a notice to him by close of today.
This one, we are not taking prisoners on this matter. Let's take time and let's walk through the arguments. Let's all understand. So it's not like people are just sort of making noise.
The Occupy Jubilee House, what form is it taking?
We'll get there. It is loading. It is not happening yet. It is loading.
Demo.
It is loading.
Yes,
this one, the president is our father. And then we are sitting there and people are trying to steal our wealth. He wants to cut us. We are already cutted human beings going already. What are the people? Look, somebody called me yesterday. Winston. The guy has been building money for the last 5 years. He has reached 30,000. He wants to go and do his masters. And his son is also going at the same time to do his first degree. He is crying in the middle of the night. He can't sleep. He can't even tell his wife.
5 years.
I mean, how wicked can you be to go and put your hand in this guy's pocket? Why you ordaining?
So those are the two groups, serving notice of the intention to demonstrate and occupy the Jubilee House. Today, pensioners holding individual bonds also declared they will be storming the finance ministry. They have been addressing a news conference. My colleague Papani was there and joins me in the studio. So Papani, why are they determined to storm the finance ministry?
So since last week when they first made known their decision not to be part of the debt exchange program, they said they just wanted audience with the finance minister to explain why they should be considered as the pension schemes. But that doesn't happen since that time. They said today was going to be his last day, but upon hearing that this is going to be extended, they've given it out to Friday. Without that, this is exactly what they are going to be saying. And I spoke to the Dr. Edu Entry. He's the convener for the group.
We would embark on convergence. We will convene at the Ministry of Finance and try to get the minister to speak with us if we don't get the minister today. To further press home our request, about 50 of our members, our members are weak, so we are saying at least 50, those who can walk there will come. To further press home our request, about 50 of our members intend to converge at the premises of the Ministry of Finance on Monday, 23rd of January 2023 at 9 a.m. and demand that the minister holds a meeting with our representatives that day. We will leave the premises of the ministry at 12 p.m., by which time we hope the minister will have held the requested meeting with our representatives. This letter serves as a notification to the police for the intended gathering. We come there, those who cannot stand, they will come with their wheelchairs to sit and wait patiently for the minister.
So that's the pensioners at the press conference today declaring their intention to storm the finance ministry. Well, as you know, since that press conference, the finance minister has, in a statement, extended the deadline for the debt exchange program. My colleague Master Bagba joins me in the studio. Did the finance ministry explain why this second extension?
Yes, Evans. It says that it will use this period to further engage with stakeholders, especially individual bondholders, to mitigate any adverse impacts while we all contribute to overcoming our economic challenges. It continues to say that important discussions are ongoing with financial institutions, notably in relation to forbearance measures, accounting treatment, as well as the structure and parameters of the Ghana Financial Stability Fund. It continues to say that following the first announcement of the domestic debt exchange program on December 5th, 2022, the government entered into advanced discussions with multiple stakeholders. These discussions resulted in the amendment of the terms of the offer, which was announced on 24 December 2022 to expire on 16 January 2022, Evans.
Okay, so the bottom line, they've extended this to allow for broader consultations and engagement on this. There's whether there's an indication whether the finance ministry is open to amending the terms or not, we don't know, but that's where we stand. Let me get back to the pensioners who addressed a press conference today, Papani. When the press conference was about to end, they got wind of this. Did that change their stance in any way?
No, it didn't. Given that, again, their initial demand was, let's meet the finance minister. Let's tell him why we should be considered in the likes of the pension scheme. So this new announcement, yes, they receive it in good faith, but that is not what exactly they want. What they wanted to hear was they have been exempted from the debt exchange program.
Whether or not the time for the closure of the invitation is ended or is extended, we have said we are not tendering in our bonds. And so, regardless of the fact that it will be ending or it will be extended then later on, it's not going to affect it. So they should rest assured that their money and their investments are being protected. We are trying to protect their investment in the government bonds.
Well, it is clear now that the extension of the deadline has done little to appease individual bondholders because they have today petitioned the Gamanche. Maxwell was at the Gamanche's palace with representatives of the individual bondholders forum. Maxwell, what's the case of the individual bondholders to the Gamanche?
Well, Martin Pebu, who is a lawyer for them, said that although government sees this as an investment, the livelihoods of the members actually depends on this. He said that if government goes ahead with the decision, it will spell doom for many of them. It was a 10-minute speech filled with emotions and plea to the government to intervene.
We are on bended knees today in your palace, beseeching you as the overlord of the Ghana state to kindly step in to this debacle that the government of Ghana intends to take poor working Ghanaians through. And the effect, Niga, respectfully, Your Royal Highness, will be that this year, 2023, the government of Ghana proposes not to pay even 1 cedi by way of interest. Not even 1 cedi by way of interest, 2023. Meanwhile, this money that our members have is their salary. I say their salary because, Your Royal Highness, that is the money they depend on to pay school fees, to feed, to buy medicine, and so on and so forth. So you may see it as investment, but the coupons, which is the interest, is what they depend on to feed. I have my sister here, Roberta. She has 5 children. Roberta, may need and see you. 5 children. Roberta relies on these coupons to feed her children. So the government attempt to give us new bonds and not to pay interest this year means that the 5 children and the mom should go hang. That's the meaning. Because without the coupons, Your Royal Highness, Roberta and family will not live. That is why we are begging Niga. We are on bended knees. That step in respectfully. Talk to government for us. That the money they see, it's not a luxury. It's not just saving. But that is people's salaries that they've invested so that the interest they get, they can feed on.
That's a strong plea there. What was the reaction of the Gamanche?
Well, he said the decision by government to rope in individual bondholders, he described it as worrying and said something must change. He says he will do everything within his power, to ensure that there's a change.
He's Bokinga.
When avenue ne wali akeshi avi no botemi ne onu nsaneko e afi na agba eja ke mi wo hemo ke yeli ko wa ke be avenue ne ege matan ke no fe no ete simwe abote afi hemi ma eyolo won bia ke minisane oba bomoden ni wokwe eja ke shin e ahun to fi o ke ochu ni ahun ni otoshikako Mblofo ke savings, o yield, ke maturity fin, na akwe abon hita, ya on to fio. Je gape ni ne bate. Sibe mamun fin ni sane ario. Ngona akeshin inu adafiko akeshin ame extend the deadline koni stakeholder deliberation abami. Koni anyeni across engine natashi. If you akeshin no ni ha wo hegbe ni wonye wo yue inoko achake. Something must change. Saninoko achake ewo nyaka yanyetwi mo e ba pia ke solemo ni wokwe o femo ni sanima na ni noku achake e den chenye ba nu nye ba na ni e ba fe nye twen fan eja ke shin eto be fen be ni che no nyo ko he ahunu ya ko bi e ya fi ahun to ni ya fi ohin ahwehwe mo aje ko tuni afi baba o ni be ehye o ba ko eko no ke ye ni o ke he chofa ko bi no nye no fe mi no nupo ba chon anambo ya fe hin ahwehwe mo kan bo wo hin ehwo nchi o ma bomo den ke mancheme manyeme ke gan to ku no tra lo fe wo kwe na mla lo e wo kala tashi fe bo ni ba ji e ba nu wo e iwe mo fi o na twa lo manya ba
What you saying there?
Yes, Evan. So he says he thought it's a new year, so the troubling issues had ended in 2022, and we've started a new year devoid of the many worrying issues we encountered in 2022. He says the issues must be addressed because it is creating a lot of anxiety. Again, he says it is troubling that government will decide to touch the investment of people. He says this is happening not just in the Greater Accra region, but across the country. He says he's happy about the extension of the deadline and more stakeholder engagement. He says that gives us an opportunity to make changes, and that he will do everything within his power to ensure things change. In his concluding remarks, he said it will be embarrassing for the affected persons after many years of work not to get money to buy their medication, pay fees, and more.
So that's the gunmancher there. I want to bring in Martin Kpebu, lawyer Martin Kpebu. He represents the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana. He was, you heard him speak in presenting a petition to the gunmancher. Mr. Kpebu, if you may, explain why you found the need to engage the gunmancher and present a petition to him in particular.
Yeah, so Evans, quick one. You know, now we have merged the association and the forum. So we went together with Senor Hikosi, his group, last Friday we went to Parliament House together, right? Good. So we are presenting one unified front. Now, we had to go see Niga because, we are on his land, right? He's paramount chief of the Ghana state. So we thought that, okay, let's, do the protocol. At least let's go inform him. And also, being such a big opinion leader, we asked him to step in and, put in a word for us. Because, Evans, we are really feeling it. This domestic debt exchange program that will affect individual bondholders will spell doom for us. We just can't accommodate it. No, like I keep saying, now we will no longer call the instrument bonds. We'll call it our salaries. Yes, there may be that will make it easier to communicate or for people to understand. Those monies are salaries. That is what we depend on to, make meet our living expenses, pay school fees, rent, medications, etc., etc. So it's not as if that money is just there for saving sake. No. We are using it to live. And as I've said over and over, Article 36 of the Constitution is very clear that in developing Ghana, government should protect our livelihoods. Government must protect our livelihoods whilst trying to develop Ghana. So for as long as we have 27 billion stated in the budget, and which we are going to raise, please, individual bondholders have to be paid. because it's salaries. Once you finish paying government workers, please pay private sector workers too, that's the individual bondholders, before you go on to capital expenditure. I think there is logic. You see, I'm sure you've interviewed Professor Kote, Professor Boppin, Professor Echibebua, all of them. They agree that government must cut down. Government must cut down its expenditure. Why is it that this year we are rather even increasing expenditure by about 40%? You can't live beyond your means. So please, this one we are begging the president. He should cut short our pain. This thing that we should come to the table, negotiating table and all that, is book long.
Yeah, let me ask you that direct question then, because since morning, the deadline was supposed to be 4 p.m. It has been extended now to the 1st. First, give me your position, that joint position on that. Is that something that you welcome?
No, we don't, because it's just lengthening our pain. You see, matters are getting elongated because they say come and make the same arguments at the table. Evans, when you and I know very well that by law, National Security monitors radio, and so they've heard all these arguments, they've presented summaries to the president, we've sent petitions. Why do you have to take us through this painful journey of coming to the negotiating table to repeat all these arguments? When, thankfully for us, the budget is a public document. Everybody can access it and read. This one is not a secret thing that we say, oh, government has no money. We've all seen. Last year, 2022, we raised 65 billion. This year, that's the domestic taxes, aid and grant. This year, we plan to raise 143 billion. 143 billion. So out of 143 billion, you can't pay individual bondholders their salaries? No. You can't kill us in the name of development.
In this statement that was issued by the Finance Ministry, the ministry says, quote, we will, however, use this period to further engage with stakeholders, especially individual bondholders, to mitigate any adverse impact. Do you accept that?
No. You see, Evans, why all this big grammar, which is subject to different interpretations? All we expected was that government has heard the pleas, the cries of individual bondholders. We hereby exempt them. Simple. The word exempt, that's all we are looking for. We're not looking for some big grammar that is subject to 1,000 interpretations. Exempt. Simple. We all understand that word. Simple English. Individual bondholders are exempt. That's all.
So they claim they want to engage using this period. Since this was announced, have you had anybody from the Finance Ministry or government reach out to you to say come for talks?
No. Nobody has.
In the meantime, though, there is a consensus now among the individual bondholders, and you have their direction to proceed with a protest occupying Jubilee House if this is not exempted anytime soon.
Yes, we are going to pursue it vigorously. Yes, the demo will come on, because for us, when the government sees the individual bondholders mass up, maybe that will send a clearer message if what we are saying so far is not clear to government. Because, Evans, let's not forget, now you see we've done the, the calculations. So you see that about 1.3 million citizens involved. And then if you do a multiply effect, each one has a family. So this policy is going to impact about 6.5 million Ghanaians. That's a huge number. Government can't afford to risk the life of citizens like that. No, that's not how to build a nation. Let's live within our means. You see, last year we spent about 15 billion on the capital expenditure, but Ghana did very well by way of development. So why would we be going to 27 billion and not pay the people we owe their salaries? Why would we move from 15 billion to 27 billion and not pay people their salaries so that those people can live? Why would we be doing a weapon of mass destruction? So we call this DDE a weapon of mass destruction. That's what it is. It's just going to kill citizens, destroy businesses. Who develops like that?
Martin Kwebu, thank you very much. Well, today the minority, the NDC minority in Parliament, called the press conference, and they were clear, asking government to suspend the entire detention program and consult broadly. Thankfully, I can now speak to the minority leader, Harun Edrisu, who since then, we understand they've been picking up additional information surrounding this. Thank you very much, Mr. Harun Edrisu. So what more have you learned since?
Thank you very much, Evans. Let me use this opportunity to wish you a happy new year and your team. We are strongly convinced that our country is in deep economic crisis, and therefore the president needs to engage and engage well rather than admit publicly that the debt exchange initiative is failing. They have resorted to constant announcement of extensions. The solution doesn't lie in extensions of it. The solution lies in a suspension of the whole initiative. And we are even beginning to elevate this matter to a legal constitutional matter as to whether or not the Minister of Finance, Somoto, by himself as an individual, can undo what the Sovereign Parliament of Ghana has done pursuant to Article 181 and 5 of the Constitution. All those loans, all those bonds, all those instruments, their terms and conditions were approved by Parliament, including that of domestic bonds. Contractual relationships have been entered into. How can the finance minister arrogate to himself the mandate to do this even without information to Parliament or with his prior approval? When he appeared in Parliament with his 2023 budget, he was very terse with information on the debt exchange, refused even to oblige Parliament with the parameters and details of the exchange, misled and deceived the Ghanaian public that there will be no haircut, misled and deceived the Ghanaian public that individual bonds will not be affected. He's now back to include it. And as we just listened, you are talking of about 70 to 80 billion of Ghana cedis. What's he going to do with it? How is he going to manage it? We can't trust him even when he took 2 billion from the IMF post-COVID. What did he do with it? We now have a situation where our debt to GDP is hovering from 78 to 100%, over 470 billion Ghana cedis from 120 billion. We are not seeing expenditure cut, and we demand expenditure cut, that at least they should water down on many of their initiatives in order to save lives, save businesses, and our financial sector is at the gravest risk. The insurance industry, individual investment and savings will be compromised in the name of their arrogance of not wanting. I mean, I have said in a telling manner that President Nana Addo must understand that the weight of our financial crisis is bigger than his ego and the ego of the finance minister. And therefore, how could you even proceed to implement a debt exchange program that affected individual investment and savings without first engaging them, without first consulting them? Part of the arrogance of power. We will do it. This is not the way to govern. Yeah. This government is throwing public opinion to the dogs. It is not respecting the 30 million Ghanaian people who gave it the will to govern, and we simply cannot accept this going forward. Therefore, the whole debt initiative, even including the external, when you vary the terms and conditions of an agreement, it will operate as in breach of the relationship that you entered into. Evans, if you do an analysis of our debt portfolio, over 60% are with private lenders, not bilateral, not multilateral. It's not like money taken from China or from Turkey or from the US that you can just engage and say that I'm giving you a haircut. Much of it is with private creditors who simply won't accept what he's doing. We don't think that he thought through this policy well. He did not engage. He did not consult. And the Ghanaian people are rejecting it. It's a sine qua non to us getting an IMF bailout. If it fails, the IMF bailout will fail, and the economy will simply move from life support heading towards the economic morgue.
You mentioned that what the current debt exchange program as proposed is actually a breach of the Constitution. I think you mentioned Article
No, we are elevating it to a legal constitutional matter. Our
and you
lawyers
reference
are
Article
carefully stating
Article
it,
181.
whether the Minister for Finance even has the mandate to do what he's doing,
yes, and
without coming back to Parliament.
I found that an interesting one, because I remember when they started, I know there was a debate as to whether or not nobody was sure. But I pulled up Article 181, which 181.5, I think you mentioned, which says that
economic transactions.
Yeah, exactly. That this article applies to loans. And this article shall, with the necessary modification in Parliament, apply to an international business or economic transaction to which the government is party, as it applies to a loan. You believe this qualifies?
Absolutely, absolutely. Even for instance, their gold for oil is also an economic transaction. They need to come clear. And in the management of this whole debt initiative, whether domestic or external, there is no transparency. What are they going to do with the money? How do they intend to use it? How much are they taking from whom and for what? We cannot afford this. And therefore, what the Minister of Finance is doing is to revoke a mandate which was so granted by Parliament and usurp it as if it is his right and power to do so. He cannot engage or renegotiate anything without the representatives of the people having a say.
You mentioned
and
today
individual bondholders, over 70 billion. He's now extending his hands into people's pocket directly.
You mentioned
in
today
a manner
that
which is not acceptable to them.
You'll be embarking on a road show. Explain to me the purpose of that.
You know, all along that they indicated that there will be a debt exchange program. Not all of us appreciated it. This government just lacks sincerity. They lack candor. IMF, they said no, we won't go. Head that there will be none. Dismiss the rumors. We are there. So now debt exchange. An individual who has 100,000 or 1 million needs to understand that between now and 2027, he may lose up to 30-40% of that investment. And that for this year, next year, he may get zero returns. Now, take just the banking sector and the financial institution. They have about 60 billion, and the interest on this investment is what they rely on. This will spell the doom of Ghana's financial sector, including the banks. Liquidity will suffer. They will not even have the minimum requirement. And already, as we all monitor even their published account into February and March, we'll begin to appreciate how much of that money they use to finance the government. And Evans, your team will have to work further. You know that under the NPRA Act, it was a requirement that at least 75% of some of this money is invested in government bonds. You are turning around to say that I'll give zero, I'll not give you anything. Is it your money?
Thank you very much, Henry Drisu. Henry Drisu is the minority leader joining us today on the back of a press conference that they addressed earlier today. I want to hear from you today on Newsnight, which starts right now.